Hey, girlfriends, welcome to Girlfriend's Guide to Homeschooling with Angela Jordan Perry, and I am your host, Angela Jordan Perry. And today I have Latisha Lee with me out of Georgia. Say hello, Latisha.
Hello, everyone.
So this beautiful homeschooling mom has been homeschooling for 18 years to her 3 beautiful B's. You all need to go over to the podcast, Girlfriends Chat with Angela Jordan Perry, and listen to her full interview. Now, as always, we have the full interview and then something they say in the interview. These interviewees, they will say something, these women will say something so poignant and so, impactful that we dive in deeper. And this is what you get here on the YouTube. You get the diving in deeper. Okay, they said that in the podcast. So what does she mean? Let me hear a little bit more about it. So you want to hear the whole interview? Go to the podcast. It's on all the podcast stations. Girlfriends Chat with Angela Jordan Perry. Rate, review, share, like. I need you to do all those things, okay, for the podcast. But here on Today with Latisha, one of the things she mentioned in her interview, which was very, poignant and powerful, impactful, that I think we need to discuss more about. And not only because she mentioned today, but my guest also mentioned it yesterday. And I didn't realize this was such a thing, Latisha, because I didn't have to prove anything, to anyone or anything like that. My mom, I was the first to homeschool in my whole family. But my mom was like, okay, Angela, make it happen. So everyone was on board with it. And then they saw the fruit of the results of the kids.
Right.
Learning all that. But you mentioned that in your journey that you had this, I want to say weight mindset, this thing you had to deal with from people, wherein that you had to constantly be in this mode of proving that you are schooling your kids, that you are home educating your kids, that your kids are learning and thriving. Can you tell us, the dynamics of that, and how did you finally break out of that mindset and having to deal with, because that's an extra burden for sure. You're teaching your kids, but you also got in the back of your mind that I have to prove that they're doing well, that they're measuring up, that they're as smart as the public school kids or whatever. Take us through that dynamic and how you was broken free, free from that enchainment.
I did feel like I want to say I was free. Okay, well, I come from a family with some strong, awesome women, educated women, some with doctorates, people who served on boards, who were, who worked at the highest level of their positions. So homeschooling just did not fit in our mode of what I was used to in my family culture. Educated, you go to school, you get a degree, you do these things. This is the steps that you take. So that was in the back of my mind. So my children, unfortunately, they bore the brunt of my constant, okay, did you learn this today? Are you learning this? Or are you keeping up with the standards in the school? So-and-so will be here. They may quiz you on this. Not that I ever prepped them or even communicated to them that they needed to do all these things, but I know the spirit behind everything that discussed, the spirit behind me giving them the tools that they use to learn with was definitely driven by that constant thing in my mind. Are they learning? Are they thriving? Will they be as good? Will they be able to pass the test? Those things were still in the back of my mind. So I may not have been saying it.
Yeah.
And I'm, putting them in the room and quizzing them for 3 hours to prepare them for Thanksgiving.
Right.
To be real. Right. But the spirit behind it, the environment, definitely, I'm sure, was conducive to that doubt in my mind.
Yeah. And I take that back. While I didn't now I think about it as you're talking, while I personally did not have the outer influences of people coming at me with the, the verbalization of Angela, how your kids are doing or testing them and all that kind of stuff, I know that I myself inflicted that upon myself.
Yes.
Now I was thinking about that, thinking about my oldest when she was in school. I always kept it in my mind that I need to make sure we are doing better then. And make sure she knows more then. And now, even that's very interesting as we talk about this. I want to go back and talk to her because my oldest is 23 and she's been out of school, 5 years, 6 years now, whatever. And then my older 3, so I graduated 3, and go back to them because I know that I operated from that space. I'm sure I did. Now I think about it. No one else was saying it to me.
Right.
Felt I must make sure my kids are here.
Right. Exactly.
And
a lot of that with me too, a lot of it wasn't, it was probably half and half, some outside influences and definitely my own personal, feeling like I had to prove to myself, to them, and to other people that they were, like you said, up here, that they were doing well.
So how did you set yourself free of it? And now I'll be able to share how I remember setting myself free of that mindset. But what was the turning point? What was the mind shift that allowed you to not have that pressure of schooling and maybe now going into this enjoyment of schooling or, whatever? What was the turning point for you?
So probably two things. One, when you see your children's successes, that was the first bolster for me.
Okay.
And then 2, I think we talked about in the podcast that my ideal of my environment of homeschooling is really just to prepare them for their future. Okay. If I want them to be lifelong learners, then it doesn't just happen in our home. It doesn't just happen in front of their computer. It happens all day, every day. And part of that, what broke me free was, if I want them to know that they don't have to prove themselves in education,
right?
I want them to know they don't have to prove themselves in any form. And I'll be more specific.
Okay.
I found myself, and I'm just going to be real. So I found myself when we're in white spaces.
Yeah.
Especially with my sons, having to give the resume of who they are. Oh, he's met Warren Buffett. My son was on the cover of Forbes with Warren Buffett. He's done this, blah, 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 going down the list. And I'm thinking, they hear me saying this. Oh no, my son's good. He's an A student. He went to, my children hear me saying this. My teenagers hear me saying this. Well, they were children in my one teen, hear me saying this. And I had to check myself. And I'm like, if I'm still doing this route in my mind, this thing in my mind, I'm not trying to prove that they're smart enough now. Now I'm trying to prove that they're worthy enough to be in.
Girl, that's it.
So that's when I had to look at myself. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
That's why I say I welcome them. Say you can go into any space. You can sit at a table.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to learn something, or that you can contribute something, or that that you can do that. You don't have to prove yourself anymore. Yeah. And so that's what broke me free. So when they meet someone and they have an intelligent conversation and they shake someone in their hand and they look them in the eye, that's enough for me. Yeah. And I stopped giving the resume of who they are.
That's it. I'm going to tell you what. Now to be honest, to that credit, and I understand what you're saying there, to just to give another side of the voice, because I did this today. It's one thing to be proud and share their accolades and their accomplishments, because you're just proud and this is what they did. But it's another when where the energy is coming from, where you do have to prove. Let me prove that my kid is worthy, and you all know that's the difference. Right. I'm sharing what they've done and how they accomplished, and they were homeschooled. and look where they are, versus I need to prove that they are worthy to be here. So they did this, this, and this, this, and the other. For me, it came with not until my third child was she finished school at 15 and then went off to college at 16, right? So of my three, she took the college route because she was a violinist and she wanted to move on in her studies, so she needed to go to collegiate level of studies with violin. But when I realized that she loved learning, I did the same thing with her, what I did the others. By the time they arrived in high school, it was pretty much, they were self-learners. Here's the books. I check in with them. What are you doing? What you learned? Blah, blah.
Right.
And I saw how she loved learning and she got it. And I'm not sure what was the exact changing point, but then I realized, dude, I'm so anal about their schooling and making sure they know and got it and all this kind of stuff. And wait a minute, I didn't need to do all of that. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I didn't have to do all of that, be so anal. And she got into school, they accepted her at 15, but she didn't go to 16. And we didn't even finish all the stuff I did with my oldest one. We didn't even do that with her. And I thought, wait a minute, because as I went from the first one, graduate the second one, I kind of got a little bit more, I won't say lax, but I just stopped being so anal. But by the third one, I was like, okay, Angela, just chill. Right. I started investigating into unschooling and just saying, you all just learn.
Exactly.
So then I didn't have place to boast, like, oh, look at my whatever child learned, started reading at whatever, or whatever. It was just like, they're learning. I really removed myself out of the picture, if you will. Like, I provided the resources for them to learn.
Yes.
And they just dove into it and learned. I love math, so I made sure we're on point with math because that's my excitement. But the other stuff, I'm like, okay, you want to learn about science, here's some books, and here's some things about history. I'm going to provide you with all of that. So now it's kind of not so competitive, if you will, because it's an unschooling approach. You have a smorgasbord. And that's what was the shifting for me, to just relax. They're going to get it. They are going to thrive, and they are going to go off to college and be prepared. My third one showed me that, because I did not give her as much as what I gave, if you will, the first and the second, or not as much structure.
Right.
And she did great, and she's thriving well in college, so Dean's List, President's List every semester, she's doing it, and she's a junior this year. So that was for me to stop feeling like I need to do and prove. Let them learn, and let them love learning, and take myself out the equation.
Exactly. I think and our things are kind of similar. Again, trying to prove, again, taking away the resume.
Yeah.
Taking away the resume and just realizing they're good just as they are. Yeah. They're educated, they're articulate. Yeah. They, again, going back to the whole table metaphor, they can sit at the table. They can have a place at the table. And whether, again, not only so they can share what they know, but also to receive some information. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I always tell them, like, you're here to contribute, and contributing is a two-way thing in my mind. Yeah. You're not just here to give, but there's some things that you're still needing to learn. Again, a lifelong learner is getting some information. Yeah. And so, again, I think I agree with you, just taking yourself out of the equation and just being fine with who they are. My son is not a traditional, what I would put in a box. He is who he is. And then when you learn that, again, like when you learn their learning style and how they're, one person really does like to read books and they get all their information from books, but another person would prefer to sit and have a conversation with you and learn that way. So taking yourself out of the equation and just being comfortable, that's where it happened for me. And taking away that whole resume thing, that it definitely had to do with education, but it also definitely clicked in my mind, like, you know what? I think as an African American person, we spend too much of our time trying to prove to others that we belong. And I don't want them to feel that way. I want them to just know
that they can be,
that you can just be who you are. You do not have to be what they think you should be.
Absolutely.
My son, he's not clean cut. You wouldn't think that he was on Forbes, but that's who he is, and I had to be comfortable with
and
that.
It's okay.
And it's okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this real quick, and then we'll end it. But the other thing, as we're talking through this, the other big thing. Here's the big thing. When I started them in homeschooling, my oldest, we start officially with books and all that kind of stuff at 4. Mm-hmm. And so my goal was like, I'm going to get my kids, all my kids, they're going to go to college. The goal was college.
Oh, yeah.
I think when my first one, she did dual enrollment, but then she says, Mom, I really don't think college is for me. So that
crushed you a little.
Crushed me a little bit, okay? Because we've been working hard to get you up to college. And then you talk about you don't think that's for you. What?
Right.
And then my second one, he didn't either. He started off with the military. Then that crushed me a little bit more. I was like, okay, wait a minute. I'm giving y'all this, that. So the third one, like I said, I eased up a little bit. She did go on to college. And then my husband and I became, 100% entrepreneurs. So we're making our own dime and doing our own business, coffee business and all this kind of stuff. And then I realized, okay, here is another big turning point, was that college may not be for all of my 8 children.
Exactly, yes.
There's other options, right? So that was another question. That bit of insight was a dying to Angela. I remember being in the bed almost depressed. I think I called my mom crying. Annika's not going to college. I mean, I look at it now, it's so ridiculous, but they helped to crush that because I was working hard to make them be up here.
Yeah.
They got it. They must enter into college. That is your plan. That is your course. And then they were like, no, we do have other plans. Oh, you do have a different journey than what I planned for you? Okay.
Right. So
I need to just chill out, give y'all everything that you need to learn, and then you all decide. And if it's something that you love, you want to be a scientist, okay. And to be a scientist, you got to do this. So exactly. I really gave the reins to them and took it from me, who had my plans for their life. I did. And so that was the big switch as well, when they showed me, no, Mom, that's not what we want to do. We want to do something different.
Yep.
So, but good. That is beautiful. Thank you, Latisha, for sharing the insights and how to set us free. It really, really, really is. It starts with us and our mind.
It does.
It really does, because we set the course of all of that. So, all right, girlfriends. So thank you again for joining in, and go listen to Latisha's, the podcast interview. It will bless you and encourage you and give you some insights. This is a veteran homeschool mom. Woo, woo, woo,
Thank you.
Full of nuggets, and she's still doing it, and she's working mom as well. So go listen and get some insights from her. So Latisha, thank you again for sharing on this little teaser here on YouTube. And until next time, peace and blessings to everyone.
Bye.